okay to be uncomfortable when you're stepping out of your comfort zone. I think is one, because as a younger person, I was extremely shy, and I found it very hard to step out of my comfort zone. I never put myself in a situation where I would have to, and I think that's one of the things in my teaching that I'm like, okay, it's okay to make mistakes and step out of your comfort zone. You'll grow more. And I mean, I had huge support growing up and great family, but just my own self-confidence. I think if someone had kind of taken me and said, okay, it's okay to try this and step out of that zone and give it a shot, it's okay, would have been helpful, right? In the area of like, not my home life, but my outside of home life. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and being able to step outside it's not something that everybody's capable of doing, but I think especially for young folks and young kids is that it is an important thing to talk about. It is so important.
It is. It really is. And we so often don't necessarily encourage it. We don't recognize the people who need that encouragement. Yeah. And it's not it's not a fault of anyone's. It's just not something we necessarily see unless you're looking for it.
Yeah. And sometimes it could even be that you yourself, like if you're a parent or a teacher, you might not have a full understanding of that because you yourself never got that.
Exactly. And at the same time, it is also good because for me, being that way when I was younger, it gives me a sense of empathy to my students who are struggling with, okay, I want to try this, but I'm really nervous and I'm shy and I'm scared, and kind of gives you that empathy to know where to kind of go and try and guide them into, because you know almost what you felt like when you were their age.
Yeah, and probably not just the students, but the folks you work with on the stage too.
Absolutely, yeah. I have one that recently that I worked with that I could see what she needed, that confidence boost, and it's never false praise. That's one of my big things. It's genuine, but it's working with them to get to where they realize they're as good as I know they are.
Yeah, it's that building up, that idea that you have all of these little bricks that you need to get put up. Here you go.
Exactly.
And you can't just like say, oh yeah, you're so perfect, you're so good, you're so this, because that's not necessarily going to get to the point.
No, exactly. And it doesn't give them the guidance and help they need, right? You're giving them a false sense of security. Then the next person comes along and kicks that pile of bricks down because it's so loose.
Yeah.
Right. And damages their psyche or takes their confidence right back down to the ground. Right. But yeah, the bricks is a good analogy, because it's like if you build that strong foundation with them of guidance and help and support, and that foundation becomes a lot stronger.
Which is, I'm reflecting back on some of the concepts that I went through in some of my parts of my schooling, where we did end up having a discussion about how in some ways the program that I went through was almost deconstructing us so they could build us back up.
Okay.
And I know since I've gone through that program, and since I'm still very good friends with some of the people I went to that program with, we've actually had those conversations afterwards of just like, I don't think that was a good thing. I don't think that was necessarily a healthy, valuable thing for people in their 20s to go through.
No, I don't think so either. I don't think there's any reason to kind of rip someone apart and to build them back up. Yeah. I think you just look where they're at and you continue their build. Yeah. Right. And continue a strong foundation, because it's a negative experience and you walk away from it. Yeah. They're like, oh yeah, we got you. So you're a good actor and stuff. But if you still internally are now feeling like, wow, do I question what I have because of the way they treated me? It's not success. It's as a mentor, as a teacher, that's not success. You know, the success is them, maybe they're not as strong as they could be yet. But you, as a teacher, the success is that you've laid that start, right? As a director, the success, you've laid that start.
Yeah, and I think even in that experience, I don't know how much of that was our interpretation, or if it was like a certain professor, if it was a certain person like that. But even then, that's probably one of the really good things about the community, working together, because you are doing so much building. You are making sure to be like, yeah, we want you to succeed. We don't need you to be cutthroat, which sometimes I kind of felt that needed to happen a little bit. So that was what we thought about, was in that particular realm of theater. Yeah. But you don't need to be cutthroat here unless you're doing like, I don't know, Hook or something like that.
Right?
But
Yeah, or Sweeney Todd.
Yes, Sweeney Todd.
Yeah, it's definitely not about that.
Yeah.
It's definitely not about that. It's about working together, supporting and loving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a family. It's a lover. It's a
Absolutely.
community. It's that wonderful kind of stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
So we've mentioned a little bit here or there, but what projects are you working on, or what projects do you kind of have getting ready to go in the oven there?
Currently, I'm assistant stage managing Sweeney Todd at Studio Theatre, while also stage managing Gatsby. So Sweeney goes on November, Gatsby doesn't go on to March, so it gives me a little bit of time. And I am teaching drama in school, and in the spring I start with my 10 to 12s, and we will look at doing a production. They're small scale right now. We're just kind of trying to work them back into it. So I'll do what I did last year, which was we put together a show and then had elementary schools from our community again come, because how do you grow? You open it up to the younger and you bring them in. So we'll probably do that again. In the next couple of years, I do have a few things I wouldn't mind looking to direct again. I'm looking at ones like Emma by Jane Austen. Midsummer Night's Dream is another one I've always wanted to direct. Peter Pan is another one that's kind of... So I've got these trickling in my mind about things to do here in the future. I'd really love to get back on stage. I was going to audition for Sweeney Todd, but timing just wasn't great. I got back on stage 2 years ago now, and it was just... You get up there and it's just different. I'm also currently the vice president of our studio theater, so I'm involved in that way and kind of trying to get some more new programs started and kicking off. We're just kind of starting with our new executive tomorrow. So yeah, that's kind of my life. Funnily enough, is a lot of theater, and my job. That's kind of what life revolves around. But yeah, so right now it's Gatsby and Sweeney Todd, and we'll kind of go from there. We have a 70th anniversary celebration we want to have for the theater, so I'll be involved in helping plan that as well. And yeah, so it's kind of in the next year. That's kind of where or the next season. It's not even the year, right?
Yeah.
It's the theater season.
And I think I heard like wedding bells or something going on too.
Yeah, I got engaged this past summer in a hot air balloon.
Oh, in the hot air balloon.
In a hot air balloon. We were on a hot air balloon ride, so that was pretty darn awesome. So yeah, in July of next year, we'll be getting married and
that's wonderful.
having a pirate-themed wedding. And because, being theatrical and all, you got to make it good.
Oh, yes. Well, and the people who can pull it off.
Right? And
Yeah.
that's kind of the other thing. I got a really good crew around me who can help me pull off what I want.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, so it's kind of where my life is right now. And I've been in the public system for 4 years now and quite enjoying it, and just good changes.
Yeah, just lots of work being a teacher, being an artist,
yes.
just
Yeah.
keeping yourself busy. And
That's right.
that's all we really can do right now is keep ourselves busy,
Yeah.
entertained, and try to find what happiness we can.
That's right. Exactly. Just move on forward.
So, I think that's everything that I have to ask for so far, because we only have so much time that we
Yeah.
can talk, despite
Yeah.
the fact that we could keep going on. So thank you so much, Becky, for being on the show. It's been really great getting back together and just reconnecting and being able to do it in a form like this.
Yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's
And-
been a pleasure.
Yeah, and thank you everybody for coming and seeing the show. We'll see you next time. So take care, everyone, and take care, Becky.
Thank you.
Well, folks, there's another episode cut and wrapped for you. Becky has such wisdom regarding theater and art education, and it was wonderful to interview her at the Williams Lake Studio Theater, the place where the two of us had spent so much time together in the past. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next episode. Hi, welcome to Colors of Caribou, the podcast where I interview rural artists and ask them why. Why do they create in a place where the deer don't actually count as wildlife, they count more as your neighbors? I'm your host, Rowan Keenan. There's a lot to explore in Williams Lake here.
Trails, logging roads, lakes, rivers, wildlife, and so much more. And we've seen throughout this podcast how much it means to the individual artist. The inspiration, the expression of their love for this area runs through all aspects of their works. And it's no different for our next guest, Mark Sheeman. Now, Mark has been an artist for years, starting in the 90s and 2000s as one of the early pioneers in computer-animated TV shows. But all that time, he's been hearing the call of the caribou. And eventually it brought him here. And he's capturing what he's heard through his photography and his music. In fact, we've already heard some of his work, as he is the musician behind our theme song. So, grab a chair, grab a drink, and let's get started. Welcome to Colors of Caribou, stories of wild creativity.
Today's episode was filmed and recorded on the traditional, unceded territory of the Secwepemc peoples, specifically the Twahalcum, or Williams Lake First Nations Band, and the Hatzel, or Soda Creek Band. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Colors of Caribou. I'm your host, Rowan, and today we're interviewing the fantastic Mark Sheeman. Hi, Mark. How are you doing today?
Pretty good, thank you.
Oh, it's good, and I'm happy to have you on the show here. So,
Happy to be here.
why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Where do I start? I'm a lifetime artist, even since I was wee high. Never gave up on that my whole life. I worked in a print shop for a while, right out of high school. Actually, in high school, the high school hired me to work in the print shop. From there, I got a job right out of high school in one and did everything I could to start entering the art department in it. Never really, it was a small shop, so there wasn't a whole lot that did get going on that. But it still got me started on the road to here. I had a couple of gallery showings early on, back when I was 18 or 19. And the third one, the guy left with all my stuff and all my money and kind of turned me off the fine art world a lot. Like, I wasn't overly enjoying it to begin with because I didn't click with the people that were in it. Like, and I was doing wildlife paintings even back then. Anyway, having decided that wasn't where I wanted to go, I had to try to figure things out. So I ended up, one of the very first CG commercials was for mouthwash, and the bottle was swinging through the jungle from tree to tree. And once I saw that, that clicked me that I needed to do 3D animation and figure that out. So from there, I bought myself, I borrowed the money from my mom to buy a computer and stuff because I had looked into schooling and it was really early still. And they were basically teaching the manual from what I could understand. So I taught myself, and about a year and a half later, I got a job at Mainframe. From there, I got 8 years of craziness at that place. From the day I was hired to my first day off was 7 weeks, and there wasn't less than a 12-hour day in that 7 weeks. Jeez. It was insane how much we were working to try to get us out. But it was Reboot, the show, and at that time, nobody else in the world was doing it yet. There was a French company who got their show slightly after ours, but really, we were the only ones. In fact, I heard Disney was kind of ticked off at us because we were pulling it off and they couldn't yet. They obviously caught up in the end.
Yeah.
But
the last people you want to tick off, Disney.
Yeah.
You know what? It was back that because that was that would have been in, when did Reboot first come out?
95, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 95.
Yeah. That is so, like, so you were at the pinnacle at like the beginning of that, because Reboot's like, I know Reboot as one of the first big CGI TV shows that it was ever made.
Yeah, I came in on the third episode.
Yeah.
That's the one I started on. Those guys had been, the very first episode took them a year to get out, the very first one. And then after that, it was every 8 weeks, I guess, after that. Yeah. So it was a ride for a while, but it's fun.
Yeah.
fun as hell too.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
and so you start and like and the fact that you taught yourself is so I know I've heard stories of folks like at the beginning of that time of like CGI and computer animation, and like the fact that you taught yourself is like I'm like thoroughly impressed, as well as like not super surprised. It seems that you've got this very like this very natural like no I'm if especially because you said you started out at a print shop and you've like you started here and you're gonna be I'm just gonna make things my own way. I'm just kind of gonna forge my own path there.
Yeah, and it's it's been an interesting path.
Yeah.
Not always up, that's for sure.
Yeah. And this was down in you said you were you were born and raised in Vancouver area.
North Van.
North Van. Perfect.
Yeah, but loved it back then. I mean, North Van was very much like this when up till I was about early teens, and it started to grow. I guess Expo, right? 86. I think that's when Vancouver started to explode. Before that, it was kind of just a quiet town, even though it was a city. I rarely went to Vancouver itself. It felt foreign.
So you grew up in North Van, and you watched a lot of that change throughout your life, and now you're up here in the Caribou, and you've only been here for a few short years, right?
8 years.
8 years, yeah. Just
so.
still feels like a few short. I mean, I'm getting older. 8 years is not that long ago. It's not that long.
Yeah, and you're right. It really hasn't been that long. I guess because our history with the Caribou goes back so far that I don't. Like moving here was inevitable to me, sort of. I mean, we would have come sooner, but my wife was really attached to the job she had at the time, and she was quite happy there. That was Yellow Pages.
Oh, nice.
But once that started to change, because it did too, as so many companies have. She was like, yeah, it's time. And
so, what was the initial connection with the Caribou? How were you made aware of this place?
My dad, my parents moved up here about 3 decades ago, but my dad moved up here because when he first came to Canada from East Germany, he loved it here. The big pit mine that's up past or towards Likely.
Yeah. I can't remember the name of that one.
And I'm not sure. He worked in there, although it wasn't an operating mine at the time, so I can't remember exactly what he was doing. I didn't get the details on that. But, I mean, even when we go camping and stuff early on, we come up this way quite often. I mean, one year, how old was I? Maybe 11. We did the Gold Rush Trail.
Oh, okay.
Came all the way in a Volkswagen van. Yeah. With my dad playing German marching music. It drove me nuts. It's a long drive with that music. I still don't know why you like that music. But hey, everybody's likes what they like, right?
Exactly.
Anyway, when they moved up here, they got a log cabin up on the way to Likely there. I'm trying to remember the road name. Well, it doesn't really matter. Anyway, they got that up there. So every summer vacation, and this is really the only place we came. I went to Vegas once. Vegas twice and LA once in those 30 years. Other than that, every vacation was here because I just love it here. And I've always been a kind of an off-roady guy, fishing outdoors, and it never ends up here.
No, it really doesn't.
And there's something interesting around every bloody corner. Like, I'm still out exploring all the time now for my YouTube and just because I love doing it. And I never get tired. I never even come close to getting tired of it. I go take the logging roads, you go around a corner, and somebody stacked up 10 boulders with their like, why? I don't know, but it's awesome. You just see such really neat stuff. You start driving the back roads, and everybody's got their address signs that are super creative and super like. It's just such a neat place, and it's got so much character compared to. I don't know. Nobody's trying to be the same up here, and there's no expectation for them to be.
I think it's a wonderful observation. That is, it really does kind of speak to those truisms of this area. And I know myself, I've been I'm a lot more invested in the historical aspect, in the stories of the people and the individuals, and I appreciate hearing that from, and you know what, the way I hear you talk about it is it might sound like you might have only moved here within the last 8 years, but if you've been spending a huge portion of your life up here, that's like, yeah, the caribou's been a part of your life for quite a long time.
Yeah.
And and it's interesting to see how that kind of influences you, because there's a very real like call of the caribou. I know some of the other people
that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Some of the other people I've interviewed they've gone through the exact same thing. They've heard stories of this place, and then they just like, I need to be there. I need to be here. One person I interviewed said they saw photographs of the Coast Mountains, and that's what got them into BC. And then they started hearing more stories of the caribou, and they're like, well, this place sounds amazing and fantastic. And be it from like the individuals, or be it from like a naturalistic perspective, I have a suspicion that kind of you heard that call when you were younger.
I call it the song of the caribou instead of the call of the caribou, but it's the same idea. You could hear for miles up here. And yet it's never, even chainsaws and stuff never seem to be in your face. You know what I mean? Like they just echo off the mountains, and then there's always natural bird song, and there's always a wind and the rustling of the leaves, and you can be alone up here when you want to be.
Yes.
That's something that couldn't do anymore in Vancouver. That was part of the reason that we left. We used to go up to a place called Ioko in Port Moody. And it was a whole mountain owned by BC Hydro, and nobody knew about it. All right. So up until, a couple of years before we came up here, I could go up there and I could walk for 2 hours without seeing another person. I don't know how the word got out. First we saw dog walkers, which, is fine. But within 2 years, the place was just, it was packed, and we really didn't know anywhere else to go left, that there weren't just too many people. Vancouver's beautiful. I mean, it's gorgeous. The coast is gorgeous. But it feels like there's 10 rats for every piece of cheese. You know what I mean? And it's just that's not a life I wanted anymore. And we knew this was here. Like, why would we not come here as soon as we could, kind of idea. There are challenges. Like, I guess most artists have challenges up here. But it's also art. The art itself is far more apparent. It doesn't get lost in the thing. I mean, you've seen Williams Lake is full of murals, and they're gorgeous. Yeah. And the gallery showings and the art walk. And I haven't been a big part of the art community yet, but it's so easy to find. And I felt like I was, even though I haven't joined it officially.
I think it's, I grew up in this area, and I grew up thinking, and that's kind of one of the reasons I wanted to talk to artists in this podcast, was because when I grew up in this area, I always felt that there was the stigma against the arts. I remember when I made the decision to become an actor and an artist, there was like, people were still supportive, but it was also a lot more of like, okay, cool, well, you're going to do that. What are you going to do for work?
Well, I got that in North Van, though.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I was just having a German father as upbringing. He was like, you go and you drive a truck or you build a ship, but what's this artsy stuff? No.
Yeah, exactly. It depends too. And I find growing up here, there's a lot more. But then again, I also grew up on a farm. I grew up with those, like, that same type of, like, hard work equal is like you have something tangible at the end. That's like you come home with sweat and dirt and blood and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and that taught me the value of working hard. I don't regret any of that. I wish they understood the need to be an artist a bit better than they did. It made things a little rough as a kid, obviously. You're not doing what your parents want you to. Yeah. But at the same time, what they did teach me with art, it's made a big difference in my life. Again, I taught myself instead of going to school because that work ethic they gave me, that I could sit down and do the work myself without somebody telling me I had to do it. Right.
And I think that's kind of, I think that like this weird perception of art, because again, I ended up going to a university, I did all that, and I love the people that I worked with, but there was always something missing because a lot of the folks I went to school with, they were born and raised in the city, and it's not that they didn't work hard, it was just it was a different type of work, and one that I found that sometimes was really difficult to try to connect with.
I know the feeling.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it's and I know when I came back here, I saw that shift that you were talking about with like all of the different arts. Like the arts in Williams Lake has seriously been flourishing for quite a number of years, and it's always kind of been there, but I feel lately there's just so much more of it.
Yeah.
And it is so interesting. And again, that's the whole reason I started the podcast, was because I wanted to talk to people and be like, there are these fantastic artists coming to this part of the world, and they're making it. So why are they here? And that's
that brings me back to an observation I've made, that I've watched. Well, West Van in Vancouver was an artist community originally. Now it's nothing but wealth, right? That's been, if you follow the artist community around the Lower Mainland, they make a place really funky and cool. Then the wealthier people find that neat. They come in, but they don't want the funky shop anymore. They want a hairdresser or what. And so I'm not saying they ruin the neighborhood, but they kind of ruin the art part of it. And so artists have always been kind of moving away from that and finding newer places and better places to do the stuff. And I think we'll always kind of have to do that.
Yeah, because art doesn't really, I mean, it can, but I don't think it really ever truly settles. Like the true, like real art real art is alive and breathing, and just like the wildlife, it's got to constantly keep moving. It's got to constantly keep itself kind of ahead of the game. And I mean, the arts will never truly die. It'll get squashed, it'll get cut, and all of this fun stuff. But
bad economy art always goes down, right?
Exactly.
Although not all art. Again, as an animator or working in television, people need to advertise. They need to so actually bad economies can be good for that art.
Yeah.
But I was more the communities themselves that need to move around, that we can't like to stick together. We kind of, we get overwhelmed a lot because art's art.
Yeah.
It's not as tangible as a building or a road, so we get pushed off to the side every so often, and we have to refigure things out. And I don't think that's so bad, because it makes us better artists. Mm-hmm. And I mean, there's artist communities that have lasted long. Salt Spring Island, I mean, that's been an artist community for my whole life, as far as so I kind of think up here's sort of the same. It just wasn't as apparent, like you said, when you were young. You couldn't see it, but I think they were always here.
Yeah. I think it's, they've always been here. And I think it's just more of how apparent it is and how much support it gets from other people. And
exactly. Yeah.
And oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, with all the murals and stuff and the art walk and everything, it gets a lot of support now.
Yeah.
As you were saying, not too long ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And we've got Arts on the Fly as well. We've got, there's different music festivals. There's different, the Studio Theater does a lot of work, and they've always been doing a lot of work. And I remember that's kind of how I started doing a lot more acting, and how I met a lot of good friends, and how I met my partner as well was through the theater. And I think, and I know for myself, I've seen a lot more of that, and I've heard a lot more of that doom and gloom kind of aspect of the arts are dying, everything is doing poorly, and it's never going to be there, this is getting cut, but it's, I mean, I think, as you said, I think it was a really good observation of just something that
it's
moves.
like the tide. Yeah. Animation's actually a great place to explain that, because it's a hard business. It's art based, and it has gone back and forth every decade since I was a little kid. I mean, we had horrible animation when I was young. We had Hercules and Spider-Man, and I mean, we were lucky if they moved an arm.
Yeah.
But what I've noticed with the animation industry is that the business guys will be in charge, and they'll kill the artistic side of it, and it won't do as well. So they'll start putting artists in charge. Yeah. The artists are useless at the business side. We just are, or at least most of us. Well, I know I am anyway. So once the artists get in charge, again, it'll peak because the art's fantastic. People want to watch it, but we're spending way too much money and we're not paying enough. Yeah. So then the business guys come back in, take over charge. The art side goes back down. It just up and down and flows like that. And that's just, it has to be that way because that's kind of how our ecosystem works,
Yeah, and this like capitalistic society where everything is commodified.
Yeah.
And doesn't necessarily make it like a bad thing. I think, there's always been that balance of like, how can you, because you need money to make art, and the art is what brings the money in. And then if you start getting too soulless, if you start having that too, like if it's just pure business, then you get, it's all focus group tested, and nobody, and like people are like, that's not reflective of the people as
it becomes
whole.
Lowest common denominator.
Yeah. But then again, there's also the artist too, which I feel sometimes, and like I've met some people like this where they themselves are too high up in their own art and in their own, I'm not even sure of the word. But I'm almost want to say their ownness. They're like, this is my art. I know what's best. I know this is there. And sometimes there's a loss of the connection of themselves with the general audience. Because again, I guess it's kind of like what makes art. Is art something that you create, or is art something that you show off to an audience?
Yeah, well, and I think that depends on the artist, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Really. As an animator, we had to work as groups, and sometimes quite large groups. And there's always, well, that's why you have a director in that case, is because somebody has to have a vision and get everybody to get in line. Although, I really enjoyed the directing when I did it, but it's artists are like kids. It's half running the show, half running kindergarten. Yeah.
I remember having a director in university. I was working stage management for them for a show, and I have like an entire book of all of his witticisms, all of the things he said. And one of my favorites thing is just like, actors are just a bunch of ferrets. It's just like herding ferrets around. So, and working stage management and as an actor, I've felt like, no, that's really accurate. So
that is a good way to put it.
So you started your career doing a lot like basically being part of the pioneering work into CG animation there, and you continued doing that for quite a few years of your
I did 8 years at Mainframe. Mm-hmm. Then I left and started my own company. Kind of tired of the Hollywood thing by then, so I actually was doing a lot of corporate animation. Actually, a lot of mining and logging and all the stuff that's up here, right? And it paid good, but it wasn't too many years before I kind of got tired of that and want to go back. So I worked on Atomic Betty for a while. That was actually probably one of the most fun shows I've worked on, because there wasn't a lot of CG in it. It's mostly 2D. So the CG stuff made to look 2D that I did was not overly taxing and not super long hours, just really good people. Atomic Animation actually was a great company. I enjoyed working with them. Kept that going for a while, but what eventually got me, one company bought up all the computer software licenses or companies, I guess, that are out there. And once they owned all of them, they cranked the licenses price up. And as a small company, I couldn't afford it, to be honest with you. So that put me under. Although I guess that was another 8 years of that. And then for about 5 years, I started a company doing guitar, all kinds of guitar stuff. I sold miniature guitars, replicas of different artists, and we had those being made for us in Indonesia. I did full-size guitars myself. I airbrushed them and painted them. That was going quite well, actually, at the beginning. And then in the 2008 crash, that nobody would buy, Nope. Nobody was buying any of that stuff. I went back to animation for about a year, which would have brought 2 years, I guess. Wasn't really, my heart wasn't in it for that point anymore. And so we started to move up here, really, from that point. During that, I was doing, all kinds of different stuff. I was doing some graphic art. I mean, back to the printing stuff, doing business cards and all that kind of stuff for people. I was doing a little bit of video work, did a couple of music videos for some friends and people like that. Did try to shoot a pilot, Wrench Brothers, I think that was called.
Wrench Brothers.
Never got sold, so that one didn't turn out. But once I moved up here, most of my concentration was on the house we had bought.
Yeah.
So a lot of work.
Yeah.
A lot of work.
A lot of work building houses.
But it's also creative and artistic. I got to paint the walls and instead of replacing the floors, we painted. They were this weird rubber stuff, I guess, from the kitchen floor especially.
Oh, okay.
Was this. Anyway, I managed to sand it down and paint it, held acrylic paint fine, didn't wear anything. So painted that floor, painted the walls, redid the cabinets, all that stuff. It's too bad it's gone.
Yeah, because that, you mentioned before that burned down. So,
yeah. Sorry, I guess not in front of camera.
No worries.
Yeah, no. The house burned down, and once that had happened, it took about a year to get another house on the property, and I no longer had a job fixing the house up. So I've gone back to art now, and I've gone back to being more behind the camera than the hands-on art that I do. And starting a YouTube channel, and more than that, back to my music. I've been playing guitar since I was 12. My brother got a guitar, decided it wasn't really his singing, threw it in the closet. I opened the closet door and went, "There's a guitar in here." My brother's 6 years older, so didn't even realize he had tried to learn. And once I picked that thing up, I've maybe 1 or 2 days in my whole life where I haven't strummed a guitar. I haven't tried to play professional for most of my life, but I've never stopped playing. It's been such a huge part. And briefly, while I had the guitar company, I was out there playing quite a bit, actually. I was playing the flea markets, which was fun. You actually get pretty big crowds there. And then we'd go and do music festivals, and I wouldn't be playing the main stage, but I'd play off on the side before the stuff would start. So you've just been embroiling everything.
Just hearing all these experiences, like I'm just seeing somebody who is just like, and I'm seeing somebody who creation is such an avid part of their life, like in all aspects of this. And like that was going to be in the next question, because I wanted to talk more, or like I wanted to jump into your music stuff, because because you're very thankful. Like you've done a lot of really fantastic music, from what I'm hearing. In fact, you're the one who's doing the music for our theme here. You're graciously letting us use that, and like it's I'm losing my train of thought right now because I'm like, there's so much I want to ask. But so you've been doing all of this stuff for so much of your life now. And so I guess one of the questions I was going to ask is like, okay, well, this was your life as an animator. This is your life doing jobs like as Atomic Betty. You created your own company. And then I was going to ask, well, what's the shift? What was the shift to doing your own music? But the music's kind of always been there. Hasn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Mainframe, I wasn't doing music for the shows or anything like that, but we had a band at Mainframe that I knew that the drummer had stage fright, and he was honest about that right off the bat. And the bassist said, the original bassist said he had no interest in playing. So we knew, like, kind of right from the start, it would never be a band that would go and play. Mm-hmm. I really wish we had recorded stuff, though, because we were all different genres. I grew up heavy metal. Mm-hmm. I'm nowhere near that now. I guess I was a bit angry when I was young. Just rebel without a clue, right? As I got older, I got more and more mellow, and then this is what my music kind of shows that now. But at that point, I was still pretty hard rock, at least. The bassist was a country bassist. The drummer was ska. The other guitarist was I don't know what you call them, ambient. And ambient guitars. He'd strum a chord and then play with the fiddle and all the knobs and get this crazy background. And just anyway, some of the music we made was really, really good, even though nobody would ever hear it. And much as I enjoyed doing it, I was always kind of sad that we never recorded it. And at least we should at least let our friends hear it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. The world's made. If you want to think about string theory or not, it doesn't really matter. Everything vibrates. Yeah. Our entire universe vibrates, and that's. I think music is a better language than our languages.
I couldn't agree
it's
more.
One thing that crosses everything, and it's the one thing in my life that's always made me feel better, no matter how crappy things have gotten.
And it's such a unifying thing of our species, and I guess not even species, just like in life in general. I mean, we're listening, we can hear the birds singing to us here, and I like the idea of that, that string theory, that there is a inherent vibration to everything that kind of connects all of us together. Yeah. And I think our ability to kind of tap into that, because I think that almost. And maybe there's probably some folks who haven't had the opportunity to, or just unfortunately just can't. But there is there's been some moments when we've been touched by a song, been touched by music, been touched by even whether it's something we're listening to or even performing to. Because I was a trained vocalist for quite some time. I guess I still technically am. Don't sing it too much there, and I've dabbled in music too. And I know for myself, it was more of a therapeutic thing. It was I'm going through my own trauma, my own issues and problems, and trying to put them into some shape or form, and music at the time that I was doing it was that shape or form.
Yeah.
And
it's an outlet.
Yeah, it's an outlet.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a big thing about art in general too, is that it's expression. It's showing who you are in some way. And I first off, the band with Mainframe there, the fact you have ska and country and ambient and heavy metal, that sounds like that would have been such a unique experience to hear. And
some of it was awful too. I'll admit that.
Too. Well,
but a few of the things we put together were really, and again, it was that combination that coming together. Playing for Change. Have you ever seen that on YouTube?
No, I don't think I have.
Oh, I don't know how it started, but I think I've probably watched every video they've done in the last 5 years or so. But they go around the world with street musicians and then and get them to do parts of songs along with famous musicians, and then they put the songs together afterwards.
Okay.
And again, it's all different styles merged into. Man, it works well.
Yeah. There's such an interesting thing about having that collaborative effort with other people, especially when it comes to music. It's because if you're expressing yourself, you're communicating in some sort of way. And communication is great when you're by yourself, but if you're not communicating with anyone, then it's a little hard to get feedback and a little hard to get to play with folks, to be I'm giving you a little bit about this. This is a part of me. Yep. And then they're like, oh, this is really good. I'm going to take that and embrace that, or change it and shift it and give it back to you in some different way. That's kind of how I've always approached the collaborative effort. And doing theater school, doing multiple shows, doing music and my own stuff there, that was always the big draw for me, was that collaborative effort, that work of I can make stuff my own, but I want other people to be involved in it.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you're feeling. And I mean, I've enjoyed both sides of that, to be honest with you. Sometimes I do this is all mine. Yeah. But that's rare for sure. Mm-hmm. It's again, as being an animator, it's nothing but collaboration. So, again, the bands, they're always, it's always better to do it with other people. Once in a while, you need the solo thing just for yourself, for pure expression, that stuff never really sold for me or stuff either, because it is so personal that I usually didn't even try to sell it, just keep it.
Yeah. There's something to be said. I've always personally struggled with why I create art. So when I was doing my music, when I was doing, I do a lot more writing of poetry and short stories and playwrights and things now. But I've never really put it out, and in some ways it's hard for me to justify, okay, I don't know why, is this truly art? Because I'm not sharing it with anybody. I'm keeping it close to my heart. Yeah. But it's also, it's still, I think art does a lot more with it's the process of creation, and it's the process of, I personally believe that the best art, like some of the best art that we can have, is the art that contains a little bit about ourselves. Like truly great artists put a piece of themselves in their work, and that's like, and that can be viewed in some ways, like I feel that can be viewed as like, oh, you're kind of being a little selfish there, because it's like, this is mine, I'm putting my stuff in here. But then immediately you turn yourself around, and you're giving it to other people, or even just the thought about giving it to other people turns it into a selfless act of like, I'm giving you a part of myself. Here you are. Yeah. Do with it what you will, hate it, love it, whatever it is. And that's always been my, like, how I've looked into interpreting that.
I can't argue with that. That is, I mean, it's almost like gravity. That is kind of just how art works, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
it's.
I like that.
So yeah, as soon as you hand something to somebody else, they're going to change it.
Yeah,
and that most of the time they'll add value, not always. And I'm losing my train of thought here on this one too.
It's
you're getting a little. This is esoteric.
A little bit. That's
a little harder to grab my brain around quickly.
That's all right. We have all the time in the world.
Yep,
so
yep, I'm not in any rush at all. I'm actually enjoying this conversation.
I am too. It's been so interesting talking to different artists and different folks, especially coming back here. And like for somebody who's kind of been out of the art world for a little bit, partially because of COVID, partially because of my own mental health issues, but being able to talk to people who are passionate about it, and I'm seeing like there's a very clear passion, and again, that hard work and dedication is like just listening to your story is like there is a level of inspiration there. It's like, yeah, this is somebody who has, like, you might not have always known what you've wanted, but you've at least
that's true.
Yeah, you've at least been it sounds like you've at least been willing
I've known
to
the direction always.
That's exactly it. You know the direction that you want to go, and there's a sense of like fearlessness I'm getting of you just being like, you know what, I'm going to go out in the middle of nowhere. I'm going to go and just, whether it be like career wise, whether it be like, you know, again, starting with the pioneer, like. Starting with with being in that CGI world or the animation world so early in its lifespan, and then also even like the story of you coming up here, like it can be difficult to make that transition to go from somewhere that you've had your life to somewhere where like you've had parts of your life.
That can be, although for me this felt more like I was coming home than the whole. I mean, you know, I did quite well as an animator for a while, and I had, you know, the $8 coffees and the fancy dinners and the expense. You know, we used to go to the Sutton Place Hotel. I mean, it's just full of rich people and actors. I never felt comfortable there. I go there because everyone else went, and I enjoyed the people I was with. But it was never me to be part of that world. You know what I mean? Like I was always kind of the redneck guy. I was probably the only. No, there was two others. There was only like three of us out of a company of about 400 people that fix their own cars. Yeah. Right. It just. You couldn't talk gear ratios or anything like that there. So, and I mean, they had hockey. They had, I think Mainframe had 8 hockey teams. It was something, and I don't play hockey. Yeah. So the one place I could have got redneck and joined in, I didn't. So, I've always been more, again, I grew up in North Van. We had a creek right behind our house. You could go all the way up Grouse. Right. There's trails all the way from the back of my thing out, and I'd regularly go up there. Always on a bicycle as a kid. I mean, California claims they invented mountain biking. No, we did. Yeah. Or at least we did at the same time. Yeah. If maybe I can't take all the credit, but we were certainly, I had my mom's 3-speed, it was a girl's bike, right? I had that thing in there. But man, I mean, I feel bad I destroyed her bike, but she wasn't really riding it. And I would take that thing out and jump cars and all kinds of, I ruined that bike. I still feel bad to this day. But again, I was always more being in a little room, animating and all that was, what we were doing was really cool. And what we were accomplishing was really cool. But as soon as I could get any time off, I was back outdoors. Or again, if I had a week off, I'd come up here and go exploring. We had a 92 Toyota was my first real 4x4, and just that thing just covered so many roads up here back in the day before it got wrecked.
I think we had one at the farm too.
Yeah.
I think I wrecked that. I ran it into the D8 Cat once. To be fair, it was also from the coast, so it's like I think I ruined the light, so it couldn't be on the road. And then I would drive it back and forth to neighbors because I used to do haying for the neighbors. Yeah. And then it would just keep going. And then eventually it rusted, so it had a nice smile in the middle there.
Oh, geez.
That was a nice truck. I missed that one.
Yeah, well, they're tough trucks, that's for sure. It's amazing what they can go through.
Yeah. And so with the work you're currently doing now, like I've binged a lot of that on YouTube. I've seen there's been a couple of really interesting ones that I want to talk to you a little bit about, especially with, and one of them is because I personally am very passionate about the idea of, I think it's your Caribou Life series, where you're going through your works and it feels like you're almost doing a breakdown of what you're doing and kind of showing that process of like, I think, one of the ones I watch is like, I'm up at 4 a.m. I'm going here and I'm going here. I see this. And like, you've got a really interesting commentary about that. And then you mentioned, I'm shooting this part for a music video I'm doing for myself. And, I'm really interested to hear like the to me, it feels like it's a breakdown of the process.
It's, well, and it kind of is because of, I'm actually at a little crossroads at the moment because I think I might be trying to put too much into one thing and too much. I love the Caribou and I love my music and I'm combining those, I think fine, but now I'm trying to bring so much into it that I might be over, which meant I had to kind of break it down for myself, let alone the small audience I have so far. So that is why that's like, but it's going to continue like that because I don't, how do I put this? I don't think enough of the world is getting out there. And if I can get people to start following their own heart and their own, again, I love shooting wildlife. I wasn't even sure what I was going to shoot before this. When I was younger, I was shooting music videos and I was shooting extreme sports stuff because that's part of what I was doing and stuff. And again, I started in my front yard just shooting the birds. Well, a little over a year ago now when I bought my cameras again and stuff. And there's a bug there that'll get you. Well, wildlife is, and the more you shoot it, the more you realize that it's its own challenge. Wildlife's not going to do what you want it to do. It's not going to pose for a picture. Trying to get something with a nice background, it takes patience, it takes time, it takes effort. And it fits so perfectly with me wanting to explore the Caribou in the first place because I got to get out there and find all this. It gets me out the door every morning. And that's, if I can figure out how to get that to inspire other people to get the hell out of the door. We're all watching the news and watching our video games and watching, everything's on our screen and and I used to live that life myself, right? So I do understand that but it's not healthy. It's not how we should live. And before all this, when I was a kid, I'd get out all the time. Technology in itself isn't bad at all, but the way we're using it is not smart, I don't think.
And I think that's been a really real thing, especially with artists. Like I know in the last year and a half, like generative AI has been frankly terrifying in many ways.
Yes, it is.
And I think it's more the prospect of it because I think again, like the technology isn't bad. It's a tool. Yep. It's just how some people are using that tool.
In some ways, it's bad. At least in my opinion. The motion capture for animation was kind of like that. We one of the series we did was all motion captured. And it was, honestly, it was nothing but a nightmare. And I think it did pretty much zero. The client wanted it because it was the talk of the town, for lack of a better, the newest, greatest thing.
Yeah.
But it took all the actors wearing the motion capture suits, doing all that work, a crew of people to motion capture that. And then it took the same amount of animators to clean up that stuff to make it look, because it would be all jiggly and weird.
Yeah.
So they'd have to take keyframes up. And it wasn't better in the end. Like if it improved things, that would have been great, right? But it didn't. And maybe to this day it is, but
it's almost like using
we jump on things far too soon and far too big just because they are the
next big thing.
Yeah. And again, that's not healthy. We're not creatures to change that quickly, and it's messing us up as a society, as far as I can see. And I think that the trick is to just back off that little bit. It doesn't matter what life you're in, just little bit.
Take some time and
take it. Go for a walk.
Yeah.
Go out and whatever, shoot whatever. If you like architecture, go out and see it or shoot it or draw it. Cars, people, it doesn't matter. Just get out of your door and go experience the real world. This one here, not the one on the screen, not the one that everybody says is. It's like the whole. You can have your opinion about global warming wherever you want, but if you watch the news, the weather channel used to be green and blue for 28, 30 degree weather. Now it's orange and yellow and fear and fear. You come out here and you walk around, you realize this isn't gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
Maybe we aren't managing this very well and there's a lot we could do. But it's not what people think it is. It's like all these people that hate logging and hate mining and it's building your house. There's no copper for your wires. There's no copper for your phones without this stuff. And if you go out and actually look at this stuff, at least in here, I know some parts of Canada is still clear cut. And that's ridiculous. Yeah. But the way they do it here, they do small sections. I'm out there all the time. The animals use the roads just like they use their own trails that they make. The cuts create berries and bushes. And we're more part of the ecosystem than we give ourselves credit for. And lately we're acting like we're not part of it at all.
Yeah. I think it's a really good observation and to just kind of even put it as like things are not as simple as they seem. It's there are always going to be companies and there's always going to be people who are like going to take advantage of the system as it, but there's also those people who are, they're trying to make a living. They're trying to do that. And also the stuff that we use. Like, we're filming this on cameras. We've got microchips and everything here. The way the show is going to be shown to people is, again, it's going to be on our phones. It's going to be on TV and everything. And that's just part of our culture and part of our society now. Yeah. Whether or not it could be done better, kind of out of our control, really.
Yeah.
But we can at least look at our perception of that.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of see like the fear in the media, the fear in the news it's terrifying, but that's what sells the best. That's what people want to see. And
at least when I was younger, that wasn't the news. Some of that was in the news, but news was at least somewhat controlled. You know what I mean? And news wasn't just sold. When I was a kid, the networks had to put out news as part of their thing, and they weren't allowed to do all the advertising and everything they are now. So I think we could get back to making this right. It's just going to take a bit of work and a bit of time.
Yeah.
We've gone too far in one direction.
And I think your point earlier of just like wanting to inspire people to just get outside and look at the world and actually become a part of the natural world itself is like, that's something that really feels it really feels that it's something that we do need to have a little bit more. And and some days it's great that you can you've got Netflix on your phone and you can go sit anywhere and go watch the latest Hollywood show. But there's also a sense of disconnect from that. And
for me, music's that, right?
Yeah.
My connection with the animation, I get zero connection with the audience aside from what they write back.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, I remember, actually the management at Mainframe showed it to me, but there was a 3-page email, would have been if you printed it out, about how our show was satanic. and like, I actually took the time to read the whole thing. I couldn't believe what the guy was seeing, just in, like, you had to, like, a lot of conspiracies have ended up being true, but some of them are just so, like, you have to see things that just aren't there.
Well, and now I see a lot of folks, because like Reboot was that was a show that like people my generation watched growing up. I didn't see many episodes. We didn't really have much for TV, but I still remember seeing some of the episodes and being like, oh, this is really cool. And then even like looking at stuff online, there people still talking so fondly about it now, especially like, the kids who were watching it were seeing that and being like, this is something that I love, and this is something that's new and unique and different.
I mean, I don't know how much of that there is now, because things have kind of come around in a cycle. But the toys came after the show, not before.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the biggest differences. It was a story-driven show, a script story-based show with good stories.
Yeah.
That was good stories.
Yeah,
That's what made that show.
And that's what I love about that kind of stuff, is because like, it was a show that was animated for kids, but like you can still have a good animated show with good stories with kids. It doesn't have to be just like some of the stuff out there where it's like, oh yeah, they're kids. The kids are dumb. They don't understand it. It's like, no, kids understand a lot. Kids understand a whole lot.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's been... And like, again, I was a puppeteer. I know it's like I've experienced a lot of like what kids can pick up and what kids can see and what works for that stuff. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, Mainframe did a show. I won't say what show it was, but it was very commercial driven, and that was the opposite. The scripts were driven to sell toys basically, and had very little.
Yeah, exactly.
Very little youth for lessons or growth in life, And I mean, that to me, that's what art should be more than anything else, is helping somebody not grow. That's the wrong word, but just changing people's perspectives.
Yeah.
Or widening people's perspectives. That's the best way I could put that.
And I think it's like, and like, if art is like an expression of yourself, that this goes all the way back to like, in some weird way, a form of collaboration with yourself and the audience, because you're expressing something and the audience is picking that up, and whether or not like they might remember it 10 years from now, it might inspire them to do something else like in the moment there. It's still a very I'm stretching really far here, but like, it's still a form of collaboration in some way.
No, without an audience, there's no art, right? Yeah. So I think it's more than you're saying it is even.
Yeah. You kind of need both in the way. So.
Yeah. You don't want never to know how people react to your stuff, but sometimes a little bit of distance can be not such a bad thing. Yeah. We tend to be feeling people, I guess, for lack of better wording, extra emotional, whatever you want to call it. And I've had my feelings hurt plenty of times because, people trash your work or whatever. So there's good to have both sides of that and have that balance for sure. Yeah. I always get over it.
Yeah.
People can think whatever they want about whatever they want, and they should be able to. So.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, like that, and like sometimes you can learn a lot from that. Well, from constructive criticism. Yeah. The outright trolls and things like that can be a little bit too much.
They're easier to ignore though. It's pretty obvious what they're doing.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. So, I've always liked having that connection with different artists and different actors.
I've missed that since I've been up here, because again, I was out of everything for a while. I needed that though in life. I did. I needed a place where I was just.
And I've heard that actually echoed with other artists and creators. Is this like one of the reasons they enjoy being up here is that they are disconnected. They have a chance to be like to separate themselves and kind of let their own work stew a little bit more. Yeah. Whereas
that's a great way to put it. To be honest with you, because there's too much input. I mean, to be honest with you, when I was young, I don't know if I had ADHD or slight bit of autism or what. I really didn't like open areas. If I could see too much, it would overwhelm me. And I found as I got older that's less. I think this is what used to overwhelm me as a kid. Like I'd have to just stare at the buildings or something and not take in so much. But now it's more with people. I can't take in.
But you've got a good place for that, though. So you can be as far or as close to people as you want.
Well,
here.
exactly. And you can have wide open areas and little closed. Like there's so many. Again, you just take the pathway over here, and you've got a nice enclosed little where you experience the world differently. Yeah. And the little microcosms that are everywhere. Oh, exactly. I find fascinating as hell. Yeah. So.
And there's so much to see here too. Like as you were saying earlier, it's like you can see. It's like you can go down the road. Somebody's piled up a bunch of 10 boulders there, or you can like go drive 5 minutes more down there, and you've got like 3 moose fighting in front of you.
Yeah.
There's that's
a bit lacking in moose this year.
A little, yeah. I've
only
heard
seen
that.
5, I guess. Yeah, 5 so far. I was hoping to see more. No. It's Osprey, I think.
Oh, nice. Yeah, because you come to Scout. Yeah,
that's a young one, isn't it?
I think so.
Or is that just a seagull? No, that's Osprey.
Oh,
yeah, that's a young one. There's a nest across the other side of the. I guess that's the beginning of the river there, right by the railway tracks over there. And I've been following them this whole year. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so that's where
there's another nest up by the co-op gas station up there. Right, if you look at as you're going down the highway, just look up. There's a big nest up there, but they haven't had a child. Okay. They've been trying to get the thing going the whole year, but no young one. Whereas the one over here,
they managed to.
And now he's out hunting on his own now. So just started in the last couple of weeks.
And so like because I've seen some of your shorts. That's these some of the ospreys that you've been putting in your shorts there. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. And like this is like we're filming this right now in Scout Island, which is a amazing little like preserve in.
This place is just fantastic. It really is just. This got me into the wildlife more than anything else because it's abundant here, and it's mostly birds. I haven't seen a bear here yet. No. Quite a few deer. Oh well, we had the 2 that came up towards the interview. Just
I've seen evidence of bears. Yeah, they are around. There's a couple of big piles of scat somewhere. So. But yeah, no, this is like I remember coming here when I was younger, and like I still like coming in here at like a grade 8 and having my friend being like, hey, look, there's a snake in the water. Grab it and just catch it. And I was like, cool. And and then one of my best friends ended up working here all of his summers, and now he's got a master's in biology. He does a lot of wildlife study, or like did a lot of wildlife stuff, especially worked with like beetles and other types of insects, and like it's interesting to see like this tiny little nature preserve in the middle of Williams Lake is so like the inspiration it has, and you do a lot of your work here too. You've got like as you said,
well, it's just over there. The beaver came out of the water too close for me to focus. I'd actually just because I got my 600 mil lens, so I got a minimum of 6 point. Is that right? No, it's about 8 feet roughly. Anything less than that, I can't focus on. Anyway, it came out of the. I was just sitting there filming it, been sitting there for maybe, I don't know, an hour, 4 a.m. to 5 a.m. sort of thing. And I'd seen it out swimming. It just pops out of the water, like 4 or 5 feet from me, pops out, starts munching on the stuff in the grass there, kind of looks at me, oh, you're here. Like it didn't notice me right away. Once it did, it just sauntered off. And there's been a lot of things I haven't been able to capture, but would never give up for the experience.
Yeah, but it's I think you're like you can almost. I mean, again, this is getting like slightly philosophical, but you're like because a lot of your music is like it's your life in the caribou. It's the stuff that kind of inspires you there. So even if you don't capture it on like a camera, you're still
it'll come out in the
it's coming out in the music. Yeah, which like again, your music is very like anytime I hear it, it is, I feel like, yeah, this is actually very representative of the Caribou.
Oh, well, thank you
Yeah,
very
no,
much.
that's like, as I was saying, like as we were saying, like when we first discovered your music, when it was first shown to us, it's like, hey, you should. It's like, hey, this is a great person to have. They've got some really interesting stuff. That was our reaction. Was like, this is exactly what I want for the theme of the show, and exactly how I envision the show. And especially since the show is so intricately tied with the Caribou Chilcotin area, I was like, yeah, no, that's one of the big reasons as soon as we heard it, it was like, nope, I want this music and I want to talk to you about that.
I'm glad. Thank you.
Last thing we do, so we're starting to wrap up a little bit here. I've got 3 questions that I ask everybody who comes on the show. So first question is, if you could spend a week with anybody, past, present, historical, whatever you feel like, who would that person be, and why would you spend a week with them?
God, there's so much. That's a hard one. Wow. I'll go with the first one that popped in my head, even though there's another dozen sitting there. That'd be Jimi Hendrix. Just, wow, what a creative force that guy was. And he was not, him and Stevie Ray Vaughan, I often wonder about, would they have kept being creative their whole lives if they had, because they both died at 27, right? Really young. Yeah, I think that's right. And both just massively creative guitarists, massively inspired, and more than anything, I don't know how they could pour that much soul into their music and not burn out the way they, I mean, Stevie Ray Vaughan didn't burn out. He was coming off the alcohol and drugs and everything when he died, but they lived so hard and so fast. It would be really cool to see, and especially if I could spend a week with them, if they had still been alive and been this, I guess they'd be in their 60s or 70s now, right? So that's my answer for that one.
That's a fantastic answer. I never even, you don't really think about that of like, would they still be doing that stuff to this very day?
And I think they would, but I wonder how, like, could you have kept burning that hot for that long?
Yeah, it's a good question. Unfortunately, we'll never really know the answer unless we try it ourselves. Oh no, I'm too old for that stuff. I'm not doing that. The second question then is, what is your most favorite compliment that you've ever been given? And this could be anything, doesn't have to be related to your art, whatever you feel like.
Wow. The compliment you gave me about having my song on your show is the one most in my head, and I certainly appreciate that. It is a big one. But the one, I don't know, I guess the one I'm probably most proud of, and it's happened more than once, is just people complimenting me on my ability to look at both sides of things. I rarely will take just one side or quickly jump to, so I guess it would be that, even though there's not a specific compliment there, though. It's probably one of the things I'm most proud of being able to do, is not quickly come to judgments and not, again, try to take in everything before I make my mind up about something.
I think that's fair. And to be fair, it's kind of a difficult question to think but it is, like, it's a really strong trait to have something like that, especially in a time where it is so easy to jump judgment.
Yeah.
So the last question is, what has been the best advice that you have ever gotten, or what advice would you have liked to have gotten?
This one actually is kind of easy, and although not straightforward. As a kid, I read a Roald Dahl book. I can't remember the specific story name, but anyway, the guys learned how to read cards in it. He was learning how to see through a card. Anyway, that the whole point there doesn't matter. What he did was he would meditate to develop this ability, and he would imagine a flame in his head, and he would go into that black part in the flame where there is nothing. As a kid, I thought, oh, I could do this, right? This office didn't work at all. I can't read cards. I can't see through anything. But that ability to go to that black place, the dark where there's nothing, and mostly empty your mind, is a really good skill, because when you let the world come back You can let it come back one thing at a time, just little by little. And you can see things so much clearer that way than you can if you just, if you never give your brain that break, if you always just let it run. And I know it's not like advice somebody specifically gave me, and I kind of accidentally came upon it, but it's been one of the best tools in my whole life for everything, really. Emotionally, it gets too hard. Physically, it gets too hard. Anything. I can go to that dark spot and then just let everything come back. Yeah. And you almost always see the answer to your problems when it's only your couple of problems at a time or one at a time that you're seeing. And you never end up with this muddled life full of, I shouldn't say never. I've gotten there a few times, but it's really helped me out in life.
I like that. Thank you.
No,
I think that's a really, that is great advice. And even if it feels like it, and I think it was given to you in some way.
Yeah,
it feels like that. Yeah,
it does actually.
Maybe not just somebody saying, and it's like, hey, this is what you need to do. But no, I like that. That's a really good way. And it, kind of reflects almost a lot of the stories that you've told me of like your own life there. So thank you so much for being on the podcast here and having this
very enjoyable,
wonderful conversation on a lovely, wonderful day. And before we go, is there anything you're currently working on that you want to give a quick shout out for?
No, not specifically, but I mean, if anybody comes and listens to my music, I love it. It's the more it's out there, the better.
Perfect. Thank you again so much for being on the show. And thank you everyone for watching for this episode. We'll see you next time.
Sure.
Hey, thanks for listening to Mark and I talk. It was fun being able to record out in nature, and we even had some four-legged friends curious about what we were doing. Scout Island is such an important place in Williams Lake, and it does mean a lot to a lot of people. In fact, I think most communities have something similar, so if you haven't, take some time and go look for yourself. Might find yourself a new favorite hangout spot. Take care now, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Hi, welcome to Colors of Caribou, the podcast where I interview rural artists and ask them why. Why create in a place where you get to understand what a fox in the henhouse really means? I'm your host, Rowan Keenan. We are often called to art in ways that aren't necessarily what we expect. Something inspires us, something makes us want to feel, or something makes us want to experience beauty. And those can be sparked by all manner of things. And given the right circumstances, that spark can turn into a burning passion, fueled by the life around us, our friends, our family, and our community. In this episode, we sit down with Julie Dorfling, a new artist to the Williams Lake scene, though she herself was born and raised in the region. Come listen to her stories of hockey, parenthood, and the inspiration she had to become a photographer and filmmaker, aided by her community and her personal drive to succeed. So, grab a chair, grab a drink, and let's get started. Welcome to Colors of Caribou, stories of wild creativity.
Today's episode was filmed and recorded on the traditional, unceded territory of the Secwepemc peoples, specifically the Twahalcum, or Williams Lake First Nations Band, and the Hatzel, or Soda Creek Band. Welcome again to the show. Today we are interviewing Julie Dorfling. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Thanks for having us in this well, Well, it's a little cold, but that's not what you're doing. But this wonderful barn on your property there.
Yeah.
I think temperature gauge is saying about 5?
7, I think.
7?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go with 7, make it a little warmer that way. So, thanks for having us. Thanks for having us here, and thanks for coming on the show. In your own words, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your history here, and what you do, and who you are?
Okay. Well, my maiden name is Julie Palmetier, and I am a Williams Lake First Nations band member. I was born and raised in Williams Lake. For almost 32 years I've lived here. And, oh God, I don't know where I'm going with that.
So you're born and raised in the area here, so you're quite familiar with the Caribou Chilcotin. I'm in the same boat myself. I was also born and raised here. So, and you, so currently right now you live on a farm, or like you own and manage your own farm here. You're a mom, and you're also a photographer, right?
I guess I could have said oh my gosh, yes, exactly. I have a hard time talking about myself. But yes, I met James 12 years ago, and we got married when did we get married? In 2019. And our little rider came in 2021. He's now 3.5, and he's already running farm equipment, if you can believe that. And yeah, so we have some chickens. It's a little bit of a funny farm right now, but we're going to hopefully get into gardening. So
yeah, it's a very caribou-ish life.
yes. Yeah.
Very, very with that mentality of like
Simplicity, yeah.
yes, which the Caribou's a good place for that.
Mm-hmm.
I know myself, I was born and raised here. I've gone off and done stuff. I've moved to the prairies and all of that fun stuff. But yeah, there's definitely there's this the simplicity and like the draw to this place. And have you ever lived anywhere else?
Growing up, in high school, I used to play at a pretty high level of hockey. And so I moved to Kelowna for a season, Prince George for a season, and then my last season I was in Kamloops. And at the peak of my hockey career in grade 12, and then I tried out for college and that didn't work out. So I had to pivot and I became a minor at Mount Poly. And then I had to pivot again and I tried out forestry for I think around 4 to 6 years. And then I got into construction. And then once I became pregnant and there isn't any childcare around that age, and I was not used to not working. I have never experienced that in my life. And it was really hard for me to not be working as a mom. And photography was kind of a last resort for me. I spent my last dollar on a camera, used camera, and kind of just went for it. And now here I am today on a podcast talking about my photography.
And when did you start the podcast? I guess, it would have been in 2020, 2021-ish?
Yeah. How old is Ryder? So he was born 2021. So 2022 is when I launched. January of 2022, I launched becoming a photographer, self-taught. And I was surprised with the support, because being a new photographer or being new in anything is really hard to start. But Williams Lake First Nation supported me, invited me to all the events, and that's kind of where I got my kickstart. And then it also helps because it happened in COVID, so you're very isolated from community, from your family, and your friends. So photography was an outlet for me to be more connected to people, and especially to my community. That's one of the first times I've ever felt a connection, and it was amazing.
And I'm just thinking that you did this as when you were pregnant and starting with a newborn during COVID. That's impressive, and self-taught too. That's a lot to go through. And so what was the draw to photography? Why was photography where you wanted to go?
Well, so as a kid, I used to get my mom to buy me those disposable cameras all the time, and I was really into it. And then growing up in Highland, seeing other kids doing that in high school was intriguing, but I just always thought that you need to go to school for it. And with James, he would get interviewed and he would get to do these filming trips, And so I got to see a lot of behind the scenes, and I was like, that'd be so cool. But again, like, there was like a mental block where I was just like, you have to go to school for that, and it's too expensive. And like, who do I think I am that I could do that? And then so the draw was, I went on Facebook Marketplace, checked to see like what a good camera would cost. And I was like, I have that in my bank account. And then I was like to James, do you think I could be a photographer? And he's like, well, you can try it. And if it doesn't work, then just sell it. So that was like the initial thought.
That's yeah. It really is a lot of taking that plunge into those kind of situations and being able to just take that plunge. That's I'm really happy that you were able to take that.
Thank you.
It's like from like talking with a lot of artists, that's a big hindrance to a lot of people, is that that mindset. And I've talked to folks who have been in that same mindset, and like even victim of it myself, of like, I feel like I can't do something like this. I mean, this podcast is a great example. I wasn't sure that I was like, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't know what I'm doing. I've never tried it. But yeah, you don't really know until you do try.
Exactly. Yes.
And having support for that has been great. And you mentioned, your partner James has been really supportive with you for that.
So James was great support, and like his friends and like the film crews, like mostly Mitch Cheek. I don't know if you know who he is. He's pretty renowned, and he's...
Yes, because he there's a few films he's done in the region, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Yeah. I have heard of, yeah.
So he's like really close with James, and he was like my mentor. With like any questions that I had, he would help, and like he would give it without asking for anything back. So that was really helpful. So shout out to Mitch Cheek, love you. And then another mentor would be my mom. So like if there was like any kind of like business things, or just like if I was unsure about anything, she was kind of just like my supportive mentor.
And then you've also done other projects too. You were part of, I believe it was the Empowered Filmmakers, and you did a short film with like in the region here.
I enjoyed that. I went kind of full tilt in that, and lots of people ended up liking the film that we made, and it's gotten to like go through Interior Health used it, and I think the Arts Council in Williams Lake got to use it, and so that was really inspiring to see that it inspired other sources of community, and that kind of like got me out of my comfort zone. And filming is kind of like my next step. Like I feel like that's something I want to go after more than photography.
Yeah, it's a different medium. It's like different way of telling stories and a different way of looking at things. And that actually kind of makes sense with just like how the progression of how everything's been going with you with that. Yeah. And like any plans for films? Like what kind of things are you looking at? Well, let's start at the beginning. Okay. What kind of, so like for your photography, what when I was looking at like because of course I always do a little bit of research just because I want to make sure that I'm not going in completely blind and being like, oh yeah, I'm just going to interview you. I don't know anything about you there, but like you do a lot of like weddings, you do a lot of like just like I've seen the family portraits, you've done graduations, you've done boudoir shoots, and of course I've seen the work that you've done with the Williams Lake First Nations band, and those are interesting aspects of things. And you said you've even been dabbling more into wildlife photography too.
Yes. So I started out as an event photographer for Williams Lake First Nations, and then I wanted to try, like when you're first starting out, you have to kind of do everything to see what you like. So I loved events. I love that so much still. And then I started and I really one of the biggest ones I loved was like our powwows. And that was kind of like my initial start. And I just I loved the colors. I loved the footwork. I loved the drumming, and just like being in that was incredible. And like any photographer that goes, like they're going to say the exact same thing. Like it's just another otherworldly experience photographing a powwow. And then, so I still love that. And I still love like any kind of cultural events. I still love doing that. And then so I went in to try like families and larger families. are fun, but they're just a little too, they make me a little anxious just because, I don't know, they're just too big. So like smaller families, I still love. Like groups of 4, groups of 5 is kind of like what I'm niching down to. And then I tried boudoir, and it's like way harder than it looks because you have to make sure that the women feel comfortable and that you're like, I don't know, that one's a little tough. I think I would need probably schooling for that. Yeah. And then graduation, that's a lot of fun.
It sounds like it's, again, kind of going back to that natural evolution of you've started here and then you're moving here and then there's another stepping stone and going from people, from families to events to families to the wildlife and to like your surrounding area and like your home.
Yes. Oh, before that though, weddings were so much fun because like it was like one of my only ways to get invited to weddings because I love weddings. I love so much. And so the first year was 2, second year was 4, and then this year, 2024, was 12. And 12 was way too much. Like, it's like once you're done a 12-hour day with your couples, especially because I have like scoliosis, and so I deal with like back pain all the time. And I would just be like a train wreck for 3 days. And like, because you're like looking at this little camera lens like this all day, I'd have like major eye strain for like a week. And I was like, okay, weddings, I'm going to have to cut off because my body just cannot handle that. And I don't know how photographers do that for 10 years straight. Like 3 was enough for me. So I'm definitely stepping away from weddings. And now like my passions are definitely wildlife. I've had an experience with a fox here on this property. He was just like tinkering around our area, and then there's like this stump that has been cut off in our neighbor's pasture, and he kind of walked up on there, curled up on top of this stump, and just laid down. And I was like, I'm gonna go and try and take a photo. And so I like crept up there, and I was talking to it the whole time I was walking up to it, and it was just watching me. And then finally I like got like probably from me to, I don't know what is a good reference. I was about like 6 to 8 feet away from this fox, which is the closest I've ever been to a fox, especially with it laying down, and just happy to be there. And so I just snapped a couple of pictures, and I kept talking to it, and I was like, can I reach out and pet you? And that's when that fox got up and like walked away. But I was just like, it was like a good 10-minute interaction. And that's kind of what sparked the wildlife photography for me.
Who wouldn't be sparked by something like that? That is it's a really unique way to be able to interact with wildlife, because again, like a lot of folks probably have never even seen a fox in person before, and to be able to be that close to it and to be able to have that type of connection to it is that's something special. Thank you for sharing that story.
Oh, you're welcome.
It's great to be able to see that, and that's kind of how art kind of works, is like you are showing a moment of your time. And photography, like I mentioned this because I've had talks with other photographers, and like we've all kind of agreed that like photography captures just like an amazing moment in time. It's just a snapshot of like that moment, which probably reflects a lot. Like that's why it's also really important to get those pictures of people during events and people during weddings and families. Like you're capturing moments for people and people in your community too.
The documentary part of it is what I love the most, because it's like the moments where people don't really know that you're taking those photos, and then you got them. Yeah,
those real moments there. And I've seen some of the work that you've done for especially the photos with the powwows there. They are striking. Like I think the last ones you've done, the last ones you had were ones where it's just like the dancers and everything else is just black. And it's like, it's so interesting to be able to capture that and show that. And especially because you're kind of a part of multiple communities, because you're part of the Williams Lake First Nations band, and then you're also a part of, you've got a farming community here, and then you're also part of the Williams Lake City.
How does it feel to kind of be like to have your to have like all of these different experiences, all these different communities, and kind of showcasing all of them to each other?
I think it feels like, for me personally, it gives me a sense of community for sure. Especially because I didn't really have so after hockey, like that was my community. And after that, I had like no idea who I was. And then like going through all those jobs, like sure, you have a job, like a job friendships or work friendships. And sometimes they don't go anywhere after you leave that job. And so after COVID and after having a baby, I really had to like find myself. And photography had really helped me with that, like especially with finding connections with people, families, my own community in Williams Lake First Nation. And like, yeah, bringing kind of like helping me find who I am and what I value. And it like really helped me see like my future and what I want to do, where I want to go, you know?
And give you the tools to express yourself for that.
Yes. Yes.
As art is like, it's such an expression of oneself, and being able to like, and it's weird to think sometimes that an expression of yourself is taking pictures of other people.
Yeah.
But it's essentially through your eyes that you're capturing those images. And like, as you said, with the fox there, that's a moment that you're going to be able to tell that story. Like, you know, if you pursue going down to wildlife there and you get big and famous and you're showing all this stuff to like National Geographic, you'll be able to pinpoint that picture. You'll be able to look at that picture and say, that's what started it all.
Yeah.
And you'll remember that moment in time. It's interesting, the stories that photos can tell about us.
Yes, for sure. It's been an amazing journey for the last 3 years. It seems like more, but it only really has been 3 years.
To be fair, COVID kind of lasted 20 years. It lasted a long time.
It did.
So like when you were doing hockey when you were younger, were you ever interested in doing photography or any kind of art when you were younger?
No, I like buried myself in hockey. Hockey was probably my creative outlet. Like, it was where I kind of got to be myself, and by expressing myself, like I love to skate fast. Like that was like one of my favorite things. And of course, scoring when I could. I can't really do that now. But yes, I loved hockey. I just loved the way it made you feel. And then, yeah, having that community was awesome.
Yeah, finding that, like being able to find that community is like so vital, and like I'm really sorry that you lost that at that time, or like after that was all finished there, because that's like it's hard to lose stuff like that.
Yeah.
And being lost it sucks. And
for so long.
Oh yeah. And the rest of the jobs you've been doing too, like you've done a lot of manual labor, a lot of like hard, difficult jobs.
Yeah.
that don't necessarily speak to, like, you know, a lot of folks might not necessarily think, oh yeah, it's like you're a photographer, oh you must have been doing that all your life. And it's like, no, I was out shoveling, I was out building, I was out constructing, I was out being a worker.
Yeah.
And like, and you've kept up with some of that stuff too, because I think you've done coordination, or like you were a coordinator for like TRU for a bit for something. And
yeah. The coordinating with TRU was also in partnership with Williams Lake First Nation. So it was to help the band members kind of get into a trade that they like. And I think that one was carpentry, which is something that I really like. Like if I go back to school, I would kind of want to do something in the trades.
Yeah. Have you found that's been like influencing anything that you've done, how you've been approaching photography, especially as you were teaching yourself?
I would think it would go back to hockey. I think that's where I got a lot of my skills from, like my skill sets. I'm very coachable. So like any boss that had hired me, I was able to take what they tell me to do and do it correct and do it efficiently. And then obviously like teamwork, I've always been a team player, and that was easy for me to get into. But like leading up to photography, it would be like the hard work, and because like in hockey, you have to make sure especially when you're on the off season, you have to make sure that you keep in shape and you're on top of your game. And so I had to do that in my off season in photography. And so I had to stay focused. I had to keep grinding, and I had to make sure that I was better than the previous year. Yeah.
Yeah, there's that constant push, that constant, like, you need to keep learning. You need to keep like getting better and honing your craft there.
Yes.
And so like what are kind of some of the things you do? Because I think you do like, because you usually take bookings, but do you take time off with bookings to keep in that practice there?
So in the first year, I was yes. And so like, and I was like, really, I'll just do anything kind of thing. And I don't think I really took any time off. And then the second year, I took time off to go traveling. So that was like help my mental state. And then this year was supposed to be like my no year. I was going to say no to whatever. But then I ended up being a yes person again. And so that kind of set me back. But this following year, for 2025, I'm definitely going to take like my health and my time very seriously this year. Like, especially knowing that my limits were way over. Like, I passed my limit this year. So I definitely want to take better time and care of myself.
Well, finding that ebb and flow is so difficult. It's so hard to find those balances. And again, especially as you're starting out, like you want to, like when you have dreams and ambitions, you want to be like, yes, I want to do everything. I want to be perfect there. But it's hard to, for myself, I feel like stepping away from that kind of work there, because a lot of it before was lots of intense work, like seasonal work, and like working really hard for like 6 months and then having nothing for 3, or moving on to the next project and the next project, and then feeling like because I'm not working, I'm failing myself as like a performer and as like an artist and as like just a person. And that's like hopefully like you hopefully you don't ever feel that kind of level of failure there, because it sucks. It's not fun.
Oh no, I feel it.
Yeah. Which honestly is like, I think a lot of our artists feel that same, that same desire. And we definitely live in a society that really places a lot of value on constant work ethic, constant, if you're not doing anything, it's wrong. It sounds like there's been a lot of like self-reflection that you've been able to have with this journey, even if it's only been for a couple of years here. It
has been a lot of self-reflecting. Like I think I've grown a lot as like a human being, just in like since becoming like a photographer. I don't know if that's the reason why, but and also becoming a mother, like that has been eye-opening for sure. But yeah, just building your community is probably one of the biggest things that you need to do, especially as an entrepreneur, making sure you have those support outlets for when you're at your lowest.
Exactly. One of the